everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jenny and welcome to the second of two BookTube Prize nonfiction and Group B reading vlogs. So I am starting off this vlog with a halfway of Master Slave Husband Wife by Ilyon. I'm reading Master Slave Husband Wife Crossings by Ben Goldfarb and Doppelganger by Naomi Klein in this vlog. So I'm halfway through this already. I say already, but I'm actually going at a very slow pace reading. Today is May 13th, and I still have 2 full books and half of this book to read. So the reading this round for me has just been not going quickly, and that's okay. That's just the reality of my life right now. There's a lot of other things going on in my life, so reading I just haven't been able to prioritize it as much, and I will be prioritizing reading a lot in the next 2.5 weeks because I have to finish these books to rank them. I also, these are all pretty long books. The reality is, for this round, I got books that were all over 300 pages, and one of them was almost 500. So it's just taken longer to read them. So how this is a great book. Let's say that. I would say out of all of the ones I've read so far, this has the most compelling narrative voice that propels you through the story. I mean, obviously it is a very fascinating story of a husband and wife escaping slavery and doing that by disguising themselves at a time where the Underground Railroad had not even yet been established. So this is, earlier in the time period of slavery, like before Harriet Tubman, so a really interesting time frame in United States history and a really interesting true story that Ilyon is bringing to life very vividly. And it reads kind of like a novel in a lot of sections. There's also a lot of history of the abolitionist movement and a lot of freed Black people, but also escaped slaves who were advocating for the abolition of slavery and dissolution of the Union because of its foundations in slavery. So it's really interesting. And I am planning to read the rest of this book in today and tomorrow, because at this point, if I don't take it up a notch, I'm not going to get these books read in time. And I haven't even really been reading for pleasure. I have, not that this isn't pleasurable, but just that I haven't been reading my own books very much in May either, because I've been so busy. So I would really like to get to the other books on my TBR that I had for this month, but it may not happen based on the pace that I have to keep for these books. So follow along. Will check in again when I have finished this one. And let's see what I get up to in this vlog. Hi everyone. Okay, so I finished Master Slave Husband Wife by Ilyon, an epic journey from slavery to freedom. And certainly this is a very epic story. It's a story that I am so glad that I know and that I read. And I think the book is very well put together and tells the story very thoroughly, maybe in some cases with a bit more context for the rest of the abolitionist movement than I personally needed. But I think in any time when you're trying to tell a certain story of certain people, there are gaps in the historical record, and so you have to fill that with something. And so you try to take context from other abolitionist, anti-slavery activists that they were encountering, and I mean, they certainly brushed elbows with some very famous people, Lady Byron, Frederick Douglass, and lots of other anti-slavery and abolitionist people from the time who were very instrumental in, raising awareness. And I also was really happy that in the end, Ellen was able to reunite with her mother, which I think was a really beautiful part of the story. And so it was a good book. I right now, having read 4, I would say this is definitely in my top 3. So where it lands in the top 3 will depend upon how Doppelganger and Crossings go. And I think next I'm going to head Doppelganger because this will be the next book due at the library. I kept this past its due date, and I feel bad for the other people waiting for it. But when you're reading for BookTube Prize, you've got to take some liberties. So I'm going to return this to the library tomorrow and get going on Doppelganger next. And so I will check in with you when I have reached halfway in Doppelganger. Hi everyone. Okay, so I am halfway through Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. Okay, I have to say that this book so far is the one out of the 5 that I've read that I feel is, making me want to read it and moving with a sense of propulsion, and I like that. I'm happy about that. So if you're not familiar, this is a examination of the of social media phenomena, of politics, and the kind of way that people associate names with certain people, and then they can easily get mixed up in the kind of fast-paced information world that we have today. Naomi Klein was often being mixed up for Naomi Wolf, who is another author who, when she originally started writing, was more on the liberal middle ground of things. And then she started waffling a bit and became very anti all the things around COVID, and is now a regular on Steve Bannon's podcast. And so Naomi Klein, very much in a different political bent with a different audience and a different group of people she's writing for. However, the fact that her name was getting mixed up all the time was leading to a lot of misunderstandings on social media for Naomi Klein, and a lot of frustration for her because she's talking about how, her message is becoming diluted by a whole bunch of things. So there's a lot of complexities and layers in here. And Naomi Klein gets very personal about the fact that this becomes rather like an obsession for her. Of course, it also culminates during COVID. So she's in the midst of lockdown. She's, obsessed with following the other Naomi, as she calls her, and trying to understand what's happening with her and why they get people mix them up. So it's a really personal but also a wider lens view. And as I've said before, I'm finding it difficult to read about COVID because I feel like we're still so close to it. It was just a couple of years ago. It's still going on. People are still, trying to prevent themselves from getting it, and immunocompromised and all the things. So, I'm not a huge fan of reading about it, but I do find Naomi Klein's views and opinions and the way she's trying to share this information super compelling and very absorbing, and it's making me think about a lot of things around social media and this whole concept of doppelgangers and how that affects your sense of self, which I think is really interesting. So the fact that there's someone else that is being mistaken for you makes you question who you are, your very core of who you are, and that's the reality of what Naomi Klein is going through in this situation, and I find it quite fascinating. So, very excited to wrap this book up, and I will check in again when I have finished it. everyone. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up Doppelganger by Naomi Klein with you. This is my number one. I really, really loved this book. I think it is such an important read for right now, this very moment of our lives on so many levels. Which is really interesting because this is a really personal story in a lot of ways. It's about Naomi Klein's frustration and obsession with being mixed up with Naomi Wolf. But it's about way more than that. It's about politics right now. It's about how divisive our world is. It's about ways to expand beyond this divisive culture that we live in. It's about how our culture is shifting and changing. It's about politics. It's about, I think that this book has one of the best the chapter that she writes about Israel and Palestine is probably, to me, one of the best explanations of the complexity of that area, coupled with the trauma that the Jewish culture carries based on the Holocaust, mixed in with this idea of being a culture that had never had a homeland, but also had members of the culture living in what is now contested territory between the state of Israel and Palestine. It's just brilliantly written, in my opinion. I don't, I think that you could say that I have a bias in this area because I think that my politics line up very, very similarly to Naomi Klein's. But, what can I say? It is what it is. I'm not trying to read this book in an unbiased fashion. And, she is, in my opinion, a brilliant mind of my generation. I think she's a little bit older than me, but still in my generation. She, tries to see these situations as objectively as possible in her presentation of the way she writes and the way she investigates situations. And I think that shines through brilliantly. And I really think that this book is, for me, like, if you're talking about a book that represents the year 2023, we're trying to look at all the nonfiction that came out in 2023 as judges and quantify it against each other and pick out a book that represents that year, but also represents more and expands on this concept of a book that everyone should read. And I think this is one of them. I think that the questions raised in this book, the realities that are being presented here that we are dealing with right now, a lot of it is about COVID. A lot of it is about how this pandemic shifted our world. And, I had said before that I do find it challenging to read about COVID, and I still do. But I think that this book presented the pandemic in a way that helped me make a little bit more sense of some of the things, helped me to see some of the underlying issues that are continuing to affect us today. And I think it's just really, really important. I would encourage everyone to read this book. I think that it is just a super important piece of our time. Naomi Klein's writing is so good. And I kind of feel disappointed that I have not read her books until now. This is my first time reading one of her books, and she is a exceptional writer. So very much enjoyed this and think it's well worth everyone's read. I will be surprised if I read another book in this selection that I think should win first place. I think this should be first place. If this doesn't make it through, I don't know. I don't know. My fellow judges, I don't understand. But anyway, yeah. So this was number 2 book of this vlog, and I will be finishing up this vlog with Crossings by Ben Goldfarb, and I will check in with you again when I have gotten to halfway. Hi everybody. Okay, I'm halfway through Crossings by Ben Goldfarb. This is a book about roads. It is about the effect that roads have on animals and the evolution of roads. So mostly like American roads and from like car culture. So we're not really going all the way back to like the beginning of the road as a concept, as a path, as a walking path. That is mentioned in here, but it's not really, it's not the origin per se of roads in this sense. And I am really interested in that as a concept, as, you know, humans like and animals wearing paths in the land. And so that's mentioned a bit in here, but this is, like I said, much more about the evolution of car and road culture as it is where it's come to today, and the fact like the different types of animals that are affected by roads, that they're affected by them in their migration routes, they're affected by them in their breeding patterns, and all these different aspects of their lives, and how humans are trying to help deal with that with overpasses and underpasses, and with with shuttling animals. Like there's this frog species that has, you know, mates on one side and then lives the rest of the year on the other side of this road, and these people will go and like put up a fence and catch all these frogs and bring them across when it's time for them to go mate, and then bring them back across when they're done, in an attempt to keep them from becoming extinct. So lots of really interesting examples in here. And the writing is quite accessible. There's just enough of a personal narrative, like not much of a personal narrative, but Ben Goldfarb talks about his travels, and so where he's moving, where he's going, who he encounters. But there's not too much of that in here. Yeah. So overall, this is a good book. I mean, I can't say that I am in the mood necessarily to be reading about roads, but I think it's well written, and I think it's got interesting information. So I am getting down to the wire here. It is Tuesday, and I have to have this book read by 5 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. So I can do that. I can do it. I have, let's see, how many pages do I have to read? I have from 155 to 301. So, you know, roughly 149 pages or something like this. So yes, my job I'm going to try to read a bit more today, and then try to finish this book up tomorrow. You know, read as much of it tomorrow as I can, and then submit my rankings on Thursday. Yes, so that's where I am. I will check in again with you when I have finished Crossings. Hey everyone. Okay, I finished Crossings by Ben Goldfarb, and this, I don't have that much more to say about it. I think it is what it says, how road ecology is shaping the future of our planet. I think the research that Ben Goldfarb did for this was good. He stayed on topic. You know, he talked about a lot of different species of animals and the way that they are being impacted from roads existing, and kind of the evolution of roads, I would say mostly during the 20th and 21st centuries. So yeah, it was a well done book. I think, you know, for me, there was kind of a lack of interest in the topic in general, not because I don't think he did a good job, because I think he did, just that, it's reading about environmental impact is kind of a double-edged sword for me. I think it's important information for us all to know, but then it does have a kind of helpless feeling. And there's a lot of people out there, a lot of scientists, a lot of designers who are trying to help animals not go extinct because of roads and be killed less by cars on roads. And that's a really admirable and hopeful thing, but it's also a bit daunting to think about the impact that roads are having, and the fact that they're not really going to decrease. Even with electric cars, they're going to keep increasing. And so these problems are just going to increase along with it. So that is Crossings. And that is the end of this vlog. So if you are interested in learning about my final rankings for all 6 books in group, I think I've been saying group C, but I think or group B, but I'm actually group C or something like that. Then I will be making a separate video that has all the rankings in it, and you can learn about that there. And I want to thank you so much for watching this vlog, and I will be back again soon with another video.